Every old hymn in these mountains sounds ancient, but the original versions died completely. For generations, families passed down specific melodies nobody ever wrote on paper. Then printed books arrived to save the music. That preservation wiped out thousands of local variants, leaving absolutely no trace they ever existed. Drive through Breathitt County in eastern Kentucky today, where narrow roads run past small white churches sitting on gravel lots. Inside, congregations are still opening those exact printed books right now. Men hear that heavy sound and falsely believe the oral tradition is completely safe. They are wrong. The version living in that room stayed locked inside one specific group. Someone stands at the front without a piano or a printed page. She starts the first line slowly, drawing it out. The congregation does not wait quietly. They move directly into her voice. Voices still rise together right now without any instruments. They stretch certain vowels and drop others based purely on physical memory. This requires a presenter to call the line and shape the melody so everyone else can catch it. A presenter learns the exact weight of silence between phrases by sitting in that room for thousands of hours. The song survives through that live exchange happening in real time. A microphone can catch the pitch, but it cannot catch the crucial space between that first voice and the room answering back. Someone drifts sharp, and someone else instantly anchors it. It is never chaos. It is absolute control without any written rules. That relationship holds the true knowledge. It involves knowing exactly when a presenter is about to call a line before he opens his mouth. It means knowing how a grandmother always bent a certain verse because she heard it that way in her head. It requires knowing when to hold back and when to come in strong so the room avoids collapsing into noise. Then the presenter stops showing up. Tuesday arrives, then October, and suddenly she is gone. Her daughter never learned the timing. 3 years later, electric lights and a piano enter the sanctuary. Hymn books land in empty hands. The piano takes over the tempo, locking in the breathing points permanently. That creates stability, but it causes rapid erasure. The third line ornament disappears instantly. The local version hits 0. Men listen today and think they hear the past. They are hearing a cleaned replacement. That silence feels impossible because the physical books survived. Early 1800s printed tune books spread rapidly across Tennessee and Kentucky. They provided 4-shape systems so farmers could read music fast. The shapes taught the pattern. Singing masters traveled through counties, standardizing the exact method. That built a regional network where a singer could walk into a new town and immediately know the structure. A copy of the Sacred Harp can sit closed for years, then open and guide new voices perfectly. Paper became infrastructure. Shape note singing schools functioned as more than simple chalkboard lessons. They fused belonging and sound together. A newcomer did not simply learn notes. He learned exactly how this specific group sang them. He discovered what counted as too stiff and what felt right. He learned which roughness was welcome and which hesitation showed fear. He absorbed the knowledge by standing directly inside the sound. That standardization allowed the music to jump geographically. A singer moves, taking the book with them. Shape note groups still gather in cities today, completely disconnected from any Appalachian bloodline. The written form protected the tradition by turning it into a repeatable system. Lined out hymnody never built that separate survival structure. It stayed tied strictly to the people breathing in the room. Memory always feels more authentic. It feels real. That is exactly why it breaks. Bodies age, bodies move, and bodies stop showing up. When the bodies leave, the oral song vanishes. Collectors assumed they saved the culture when they recorded the audio. They captured the volume and the tempo perfectly. They missed the mentorship. A tape recorder cannot catch who learned the alto part by sitting near an ant for 20 years. The social machine around the sound was load-bearing. Break the company, and the notation fails at a job it was never designed to do. It cannot raise a dead room. That creates a massive illusion. Printed records fool later generations into believing the whole practice got rescued. The page starts behaving better than the singers ever did. A verse carrying a strange rhythm gets regularized immediately. A rough harmony gets softened until it behaves cleanly on the paper. The page loses the friction, the memory of the teacher, and the slight lateness making one line ache harder than another. A house is left standing, but the heat is gone from the stove. Those rough edges were not decorative, they were the tradition itself. The Appalachian Trail teaches hikers how invisible deletion works. Drive past Springer Mountain in Georgia, and the cell service looks perfectly normal. Then the trail begins. The signal drops completely within the first hour. The first 8 miles hold zero coverage. The break happens long before the woods feel remote. Virginia repeats the exact same rhythm. Climb a ridge, and the bars return. Drop into a hollow, and they vanish instantly. Hikers are still losing signal right now when they drop into those deep pockets. People think redundant technology fixes everything. They pack a phone, a GPS, and a satellite messenger. The logic claims if one system fails, another automatically takes over. Field reality destroys that assumption. Satellite devices require clear sky access. Dense cover, storms, and the angle of the slope block the signal. One hiker watched a spot device fail mid-storm because water got inside it. The only solution was climbing higher to reach Waya Bald. The land restored the connection, not the gear. Redundant systems often share the exact same weakness. Deep hollows block cell towers and GPS satellites simultaneously. The official Appalachian Trail Conservancy explicitly warns hikers to expect unreliable communication. The 100-mile wilderness stretching toward Baxter State Park delivers the longest complete loss of service. That silence does not stretch forever. It lasts just long enough to delay critical help. A broken ankle in heavy weather means hours or days without any triggered communication. The systems overlap, fail together, and create precise pockets of absolute silence. That exact same overlapping failure is actively deleting the region's music right now. The isolation, the lack of written records, and family-only transmissions stacked up. When the last singer dies, the archive completely disappears with them. Ethnomusicologists are still finding living fragments in these communities right now. Cecil Sharp walked into these mountains around 1916. He wrote fast, listened hard, and ultimately saved roughly 1,600 songs. That number sounds complete until the massive holes around it appear. Collectors wanted a clean document. The living tradition demanded room to breathe. Researchers desired proper structure. The Appalachian singers carried different line lengths, odd entries, bent harmonies, and rhythms that refused to fit inside easy boxes. The collector won on paper. The singers had been right in sound. That conflict meant part of what later generations inherited was already filtered and corrected. Sharp spent 9 intense weeks pulling in 400 songs from just 67 singers. He never mapped entire valleys. He walked down specific roads where people allowed him inside their cabins. Families are still sitting on those same porches today. Selection happened long before preservation. He hunted for older English ballads with clean lines. If a piece drifted too far or felt too local, it slipped past his notebook. He caught 10 different versions of Barbara Allen across 5 states. Every version carried a different turn belonging to a person, not a printed page. That ratio exposes a mathematical gap. If one song branched into 10 recorded versions, how many versions stayed off the paper? Bertrand Bronson tracked 43 North American versions of a single vanishing British ballad. The variation multiplied rapidly across the continent. Sharp missed local pieces tied to one single valley or church. Those pieces changed constantly, shifting meaning depending on who sang them. When a woman in western North Carolina sang a unique version in her house, Sharp never heard it. He simply did not turn onto her narrow road. That single miss multiplies relentlessly. The surviving 1,600 pieces represent a narrow trail through an unmapped country. The faded sections of the historical chart are not empty. They are missing. Empty means nothing ever existed there. Missing means something lived fiercely and then vanished. A burned building leaves heavy rubble behind. A collapsed mine leaves a permanent scar on the ridge. The death of an oral hymn variant leaves nothing. The biggest cultural losses in Appalachia carry no titles, no lyrics, and no dates. John Ritchie grew up in Perry County surrounded by this exact system. She learned roughly 300 songs directly from her family. 300 pieces sounds massive. It is fundamentally inadequate. Ritchie noticed herself hearing fewer songs as she aged. She watched the transmission chain breaking apart. A singer starts out carrying something living and slowly becomes the final holder. That quiet status shift happens without any loud announcement. Thousands of small endings occur invisibly inside individual houses. One family in a Kentucky hollow possessed 300 songs and lost them overnight without a trace. A man driving through Hazard today sees pickup trucks, gas stations, and a Dollar General. The town feels known and fully documented. It is not complete at all. 50 years ago, one of those houses held a hymn version existing nowhere else on Earth. The voice stopped permanently. The variant stopped immediately. Descendants are still driving past these churches today, entirely unaware of what vanished inside. No tape exists, no sheet music remains, and no marker sits in the yard. Scholars cannot point to a specific missing hymn to prove it died. If they could actually name it, the song would be documented and alive. That brutal contradiction defines the entire tragedy. To prove the loss, evidence must exist. To stay true to the oral tradition, evidence cannot exist. Therefore, the most devastating losses remain completely nameless. An eastern Kentucky grandfather taught a line that lived nowhere else in the entire county. That line contained the exact way his family bent the melody. When he died, no archive could ever fix the deletion. Knowing the melody of Amazing Grace survived does not restore the specific turn his family used. The road still runs straight through the town, but the exact turn leading to the house is forgotten completely. Experts call this intangible cultural heritage. That sounds like dusty museum talk. It is actually anything that only exists while people do it together. Separate the people, and the thing ends instantly. The destruction requires no physical force whatsoever. It only requires a piano, a book, or a slight shift in how the room organizes itself. The system reconfigures quietly. The old pattern drops out completely. The second death happens when nobody even remembers the tradition used to happen. That constitutes complete and absolute erasure. The surviving printed chart looks incredibly full. It is merely the filtered remainder, because these songs were never entertainment. They were intense daily life. They carried memory, bloodlines, and ways of phrasing belonging specifically to one patch of dirt. Losing one variant wipes out a crucial piece of how a place actually sounded. The scale breaks from countable numbers into terrifying, uncountable silence. Unrecorded variants depended strictly on continuous human transmission. Break one single link, and the entire version evaporates. Some of these hymns are still being sung tonight, and that is exactly why they are dying. The missing piece never lived in the notes themselves. It lived securely in the empty space between the people breathing together. Once that specific space goes quiet, nothing can ever rebuild it. The silence permanently blankets those steep hollows in western North Carolina.